I remember that summer I met you. It had been one of those temp jobs, you know, where they put you in front of a computer and phone, and you have abuse and anger hurled at you from 1,000 different companies' offended patrons. Broken vacuum cleaners, lost packages, toenails and Turkish bread, that sort of thing. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. We're so sorry for the inconvenience. You know, you do it long enough, and you start apologizing when someone else cuts in line at the bank. You know, when you get pushed over at a train station. When they get your order wrong in a cafeteria. You're saying sorry in your sleep. You're mumbling it under your breath on the bus. Your entire existence gets reduced down to a single word. Sorry. From the moment I laid eyes on you, it was clear you weren't made for the job. You'd mix up products, mess up which company you were supposed to be representing, offer coupons for non-existent discounts. But most of all, you could never bring yourself to say it. To say sorry. Not in the way you were supposed to. Pride is the one thing you can't have beaten out of you, and it's the one thing that will ruin you in a job like this. You had been sitting next to each other for a few weeks, maybe a month. We had never talked. Fraternizing on company time was frowned upon. Not like it mattered. People didn't stick around long enough to become friends. It was a revolving door of hapless immigrants, made redundant white-collar workers, divorced housewives, the destitute losers in the game of life. And me. I was the complaints hotline veteran. I had seen every type of person go through this job. A job with no future, no road out of it, reading through the same script to 1,000 faceless people. That blistering summer, answering phone calls. That's how I remember it anyway. It was worse than previous years. Fans moving hot air around. The water in the air coalescing into an ocean. Every movement swimming against the tide. I think I'd gone to the break room to get a drink. And I remember you standing there in front of the vending machines, still as a statue. It didn't take long for me to piece together that it had taken your coin. The thing that stood out to me was your reaction. You were smiling. A smile of what? A smile of hopelessness? A smile of defeat? You can tell when someone's been pushed past their limit. We can go through disasters, trials, torture, and it can be the vending machine that takes your coin, that breaks you. Slumped over the machine like that. Unmoving. It was my last coin, you had said helplessly. I just didn't need this today. I just can't take it. Not today. I just need something to go right. Looking back, maybe you weren't talking to me. Maybe you were just saying all of that to yourself. But I don't know. I guess it was just some impulse. I felt my body hand you my can of soda. Honestly, by the time I had gotten back to my desk, I had forgotten about the entire thing. Just some passing event in my everyday life. Without meaning, without purpose, without impact. It was a few days later that I realized you were watching me. I'd catch you in the corner of my eye, paused, a fleeting glimpse, caught in the reflection of my monitor, or simply in the way your head was cocked, eavesdropping. And that's when it all came to a head. Hey, that's when you introduced yourself to me. Want to make a suicide pact? Those were your very first words to me. That summer we met. After our shift ended, you'd take me to the building's roof through the fire escape. 100 meters above the city, amongst the fading twilight skies, you handed me a lukewarm beer from your handbag. You told me about yourself. Oh, you'd grown up rich. Daddy was a businessman, a provider. Money was never something you'd thought about before. Not in the way us poors do, anyway. But, like any respectable teenager, you had your rebellious phase. Met a boy, an artist. He was beautiful. Long lashes, slender arms, soft and doe-eyed. But most importantly, he was everything your father despised. a dreamer, a lazy liberal, a creative type, a poor. The more your father raged and forbade it, the more you wanted to be with him. When you're an idiot teenager, you had said, drinking your tepid beer, horniness, rebellion, adrenaline. It all feels a bit like love. You had a bad row with your dad, and you ran into your lover's arms. And right there and then, in that derelict loft where he was squatting, you decided the two of you were going to run away together. Life was a movie, and I was the heroine. The way you said that. Like spitting bullets. The problems with movies is that they end, you said. Life has this nasty habit of going on and on. The reality began to set in when you realized that your lover had no money, no job, no place to sleep beyond a hole in the ceiling of an abandoned factory. It was so easy to believe in your lover's dream when it was comfortably distant. When you could sit and watch and wonder as he plucked worlds and universes from his mind and willed them onto canvas. And then afterwards, take a taxi home to a penthouse apartment in a rich part of town. The truth of the matter was, your lover had mooched off of you, and he fully expected this to continue, despite you being cut off from the teat of your father's fortune. You learnt what it was like being the sole provider, dropping out of school, working part-time jobs to fuel a dreamer's lifestyle. All of your diplomatic attempts to get your lover to sell his works, to help them survive, all of it met with the hostility of a boy who had always relied on others to survive. Someone who had always had an admirer, a patron, a lover, to sustain him. He called you a capitalist, a snotty trust fund kid who didn't understand the first thing about art, about the integrity of self-expression. The creative are the most selfish people on the planet, you had said on that rooftop. Everything is sacrificed on the altar of their vision. And that's what was waiting for you now, in your wretched excuse for a home. A distant, beautiful partner who saw you as a roof over his head, food on his plate. You looked through me at something far off on the horizon. The coup de grace, this new job of yours, this glorified scapegoating of labor to appease angry assholes. Your father was CFO or COO or CTO or some other meaningless combination of letters. Just one of the many branches in his portfolio. You had walked through these very halls long ago, gawking at the pores occupying these seats. Here you were again. The people you used to look down on, who you felt sorry for. In the way you feel sorry for starving Africans on TV. You were among them now. Suddenly, as if the gravity of your life hit you, all at once, you turned to me. That's why I want us to make a pact. You pulled down your sleeves, showed me the scars. See these? They're a coward's attempt at suicide. Half-hearted, without force, pooled punches. When I try myself, that last vestigial sense of survival kicks in, and I just can't do it. So I want you to help me. To do it right. I've been watching you, you know. I know what sort of person you are. I might not know what's gone wrong for you to end up here, but I know pain when I see it. You've had enough of life, and you've had enough of it for a long while now. No one looks like you, lives like you, works a job like this as long as you do, and gets out the other side intact. Let's put the world on trial, you and me. We all have to die someday. Why let life ground us down into nothing? To exit ignobly, kicking and screaming with withered bodies and ruined minds. This mockery that's called existence. Let's give it the middle finger, on our terms. What do you say? You didn't know a thing about me. And yet, it felt like you looked right through me. So I suppose you already knew what I was going to say. On that rooftop, under the dying sun of the hottest year on record, drinking flat, warm beer, we signed a suicide pact. If it was going to be a trial, a true one, we needed to present our case. That's what you said to me. We needed to prove, beyond reasonable doubt, that the world was a wretched place. We needed evidence, so no one could say afterwards, what a waste. If only they'd reached out, if only they'd done X or Y. No. If we were going to die, it wasn't going to be because we didn't do our due diligence. 1 month, you said. We'll give the world 1 month to give us a reason not to die. We'll get the word out. Start subtle. A message to partners, friends, the boss. Hell, strangers in the street will do. Ask for help. Reach out. Hints of despair, anxiety, pain. Spin it however I want it, he said. Call it emotional fishing. See who bites. A test. Was there a single thing in the entire universe that could convince us it was worth living in it? Once the deadline, you'd laughed, pun intentional, got closer, would up the ante, build it up, let the entire world know if necessary, that 2 people had had enough and were leaving. I don't know about you said to me, but I want to go out with a bang. Forget decorum, forget not making a scene. I want my death to be an affront to the world's sensibilities. So, at the end of the month, you suggested our transport off this mortal coil. The rooftop of the office building. The rooftop where we'd made our pact. We would get these long, heavy ropes, the type you'd use to hold scaffolding. We'd tie them to something, and we'd fling ourselves off, gallows style. If we got the length of the rope just right, our bodies would dangle right in front of your father's office. He was always somewhere else, but the message would be loud enough. That, or our heads would pop off from the force of the drop, which was metal enough for you not to care either way. Unless, you'd asked me, suddenly shy. Unless there's some other way you want to do this. I know you don't have any personal issues with my father, and it shouldn't all be about me, so... Of all the things to suddenly get embarrassed about. I know it sounds silly, but it was the first time I realized you were actually a woman. Just the way you put your hair behind your ear, your sudden bashfulness. I might not have shared your hatred for the world, but I decided something, right there and then. That if it made you feel better, I would die in any way you wanted. And so, every day after work, we'd meet. Sometimes in the park a few blocks away, sometimes in the car park, sometimes on that very roof. You'd bring your warm beers, I'd bring change for the vending machine, and we'd eat and drink, and you'd rant and rave about whatever you'd had grievance with that day. You'd been trying. You'd aired your complaints with your partner, hinted at what was to come. Of course, he had nothing but lecturing and pseudo-intellectual diatribes for you, in all his haughty self-righteousness. You'd called your mother too, and all she had to say was that she wasn't going to send you any more money, that until you had crawled on your hands and knees back to the family, you wouldn't get a cent. As if money was the issue, you had told me, one miserably rainy day, our knees touching as we huddled under the umbrella. I couldn't care less about that decrepit old fart's cash anymore. I just wanted to see if he was sorry for throwing me away like trash. Even strangers were merrily reinforcing the nature of the universe for you. You'd stormed out of the house after a heated argument with your partner, and you'd ended up at some bar. The patrons lended a sympathetic ear, and for a moment, you'd felt like someone cared about you. There was a guy next to you. He really, actually seemed like he wanted to help you, you said. And then he invited you back to his place. When you turned him down, his entire attitude flipped, like you just spat in his face. He just up and left without another word. And the other people there looked at you as if you were the rude one. Sure, I might have been a bit blunt, maybe even a bit rude. I didn't have to say he looked like a cross between Thomas the Tank Engine and the Michelin Man. Don't laugh. But I was doing him the courtesy of not leading him on. I was being honest. Sitting that close, I could almost hear your teeth grinding in outrage. What about you? You'd asked suddenly, looking over at me. Any luck? I shook my head. To be honest, I hadn't tried all that hard, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway. That, I knew for certain. You shrugged, looking up at the falling rain. Honestly, you said, after a long time. This rain's been the nicest thing in my life. Since we made our pact. And when the rain stopped, we both felt a little loss, I suppose. I remembered what you said to me. At least 100 meters of rope each. Not too thin, or I'd cut our heads off for certain. If we wanted at least a chance of hanging there long enough to make a mess, we needed rope that wouldn't decapitate us immediately. You'd inspected the rope, the way a QA manager might inspect a risky new product. And then nodded. This'll do nicely, you said. Now it's just a matter of tying the noose. Don't worry, I used to practice knots on my dad's yacht. How much harder can a noose be? So, on our last day alive, We skipped work, sitting in that stifling heat, practicing notes. Honestly, it probably shouldn't have taken the entire day. You ran down around lunchtime to print off instructions from the internet. I stayed up on the roof, guarding our little hoard of items. It was near evening when you were finally happy with them. You had decided that our last act should be some sort of suicide letter. It seemed proper. You decided to send personalized ones to your father and your partner, voicemails, so the two men in your life could fully understand their failure. You started belligerent, taunting, but I watched as the walls slowly started to come down, and I saw those barriers for what they were. A defense, protection, a facade. Suddenly, you were just a hurt girl who had been abandoned by everyone in her life. You weren't perfect. You weren't even really in the right. But no one deserves to feel the way you did. No one. Like a tap that had suddenly been shut off, you stopped talking. Do you want to send a message to anyone? You asked, sniffing. I took the phone and sent a few texts. Then I guess we get this show on the road. You snapped the phone in half and threw it, as hard as you could. You secured the rope around my neck, checked and double-checked the knot. It sat, taut and bracing. It gave me the same feeling as being strapped into a theme park ride. I did the same to you. I remember the way you lifted your hair so I could get the rope around your neck. I remember your perfume. I remember the line where your neck met your jaw and the subtle flutter of your heartbeat. And soon, we were two figures on the precipice of that building, looking out onto a world that we didn't need, nor needed us. We hadn't practiced this part or anything. We just stood there for a long, long while, watching the sunset. It's funny, you finally said when it was dark. I thought I'd be more scared. I mean, I don't know if you'd noticed, but I've been shaking all day. I couldn't get rid of that animal fear of non-existence. But now, here at the end, I feel alright. This feels okay. I felt your hand grab mine. It was warm, like a good memory. Thank you, you said. Thank you for helping me. You looked up at me, smiled, a big open smile, all teeth and closed eyes. I smiled back. That was it. I was happy. You know, if there's another life, let's meet on a rainy day, alright? Let's share an umbrella and touch knees and drink a beer again, you said. I nodded. Okay, you said. It's a promise. You know, you never told me your name, you said. My name is... Across the rooftop, the doors burst open, an explosion of activity. And there stood a man. A boy, really, out of breath. You're right, he really was pretty. My love, don't come any closer. Take one more step and we're jumping. You had my hand in a death grip. The boy froze. I'd never seen such fear in the eyes before. How did you know where I was? You asked, after what felt like an eternity. I looked everywhere, my love. I searched everywhere for you. I heard you sniff. My love, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. There aren't enough. Looking at you arguing, how sorry I am. I realized something. I know that now. Something that should have been obvious from the moment I met you. People cared about you. They might not have shown it in the best ways, but of course someone as smart, as pretty, as filled with life as you. Of course people cared. At some point, your hand left mine. One after the other, people appeared. A torrent of love, of care, of attention. I had understood this was a very touching moment for you. But there's nothing quite like being a third wheel at an intervention. I was an inconvenient blot on this reunion. A third wheel. An unwanted bystander. And that's how it's been. My entire life. Give us another chance. You walked, then ran to your family, your people, held in their arms, bawling like a child. Tears of rebirth, made anew, healed, whole. As I stood there, in the dark, alone. After a long time spent talking, and then crying, and then talking again, the people in your life began to disperse. Promises made, relationships fixed. And then you came up to me, sheepish, awkward. Sorry about all this. I don't know what I was thinking. I tried to say something, and nothing came out. Hey now, you're not going to do something stupid, are you? You've got people out there, you know? I'm sure of it. Of all the things you could have said, that was the cruelest. Because if I did, in my hour of need, where were they? Why weren't they here? Why hadn't they come? Why hadn't anyone come for me? No matter how I felt, I didn't want to make your life any more difficult. So I did what I always do. I smiled. Because the hard truth of the world is that life can be a beautiful, wonderful thing, filled with people who love and care about you. And, like every precious thing in life, love isn't distributed fairly. Some people are born to be spited, to spend their entire lives without knowing what it's like to just be loved, to be held, to be told they're worth something, to be accepted, to be valued. Some people are trash forever. And so when I looked at you, I smiled. I'd never smiled with more warmth, with more easygoing luster. I'd never spoken so calmly in my entire life, and it had never been easier. Or maybe you just heard what you wanted to hear. What did you see as you left me on that rooftop? As you looked back at my figure one last time? Did you see a pitiable reflection of yourself? Did you see a warning sign? A symbol of misfortune? A harbinger of what your life could look like if things had gone just that little bit worse? Or did you just see a lonely man? I stayed there, holding the noose in my hand. The sound built in my head. The static that was the undercurrent of life, of death, of all emotions compressed into one moment, burst forth from me like a mangled dam. The torture of being a human being in the 21st century. Hey. When I look up, you are perching, head cocked, the same way you did a month ago. You know, after everything that happened yesterday, I wasn't sure you were going to show today. I thought you might have killed yourself after I left. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Wouldn't want that hanging on my conscience. Now that would be something to vent to my psychiatrist about. That's a joke. My psychiatrist doesn't see me anymore. Hey, listen to me. You'll be alright. Okay? Everything will be alright. Might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. Hell, it might not be for a long, long time. But one day, you'll look back on all of this, and it'll just be a bad dream. A memory. Something to think about for a moment. and then smile. Because things will be better. You might not believe me right now. It might look like everything is in ruins and on fire. But peace will come. I promise. The suffering will ease. The pain will fade. But you have to let that happen. Keep reaching out to others. Keep reaching out to others. Your past does not predicate your future. There are gonna be days that feel impossible to get through, where the pain and the loneliness is just too much. But if you take it one step at a time, one breath at a time, you'll make it. And one day, you're gonna wake up and you'll be okay. Maybe not jubilant or ecstatic or anything like that, but okay. Everything will be okay. I promise. Alright? Someone bumps my chair from behind, and when I look back, you're gone. Yeah. Yeah, okay.